process is going on where the whole earth itself will be ascending into a higher dimension. Usually they refer to the fifth dimension rather than the fourth dimension. And so they say that this process is going on not only for the earth, but on many of the other planets as well. That in other words, everything in existence is in this great process of change.
We're seeing a lot of changes in the world, and you, I'm sure, very interested to see how quickly things are now moving on, through things like technology and advancements in medicine. We seem to be experiencing life now at a more rapid rate of evolution. What do the extraterrestrials, talk about to you about this particular point of time that we're going through?
Well, some of them really acknowledge that we're going through all of this technologically and sociologically and various ways. And some of them talk about the process of ascension. They see that this big process is going on where the whole earth itself will be ascending into a higher dimension. Usually they refer to the fifth dimension rather than the fourth dimension. And so they say that this process is going on not only for the earth, but on many of the other planets as well. That in other words, everything in existence is in this great process of change. And with that comes different energies and more intensive energies than we have had coming to our planet. And that's coming to many of the other planets as well in our particular galaxy. So it's sort of a galaxy-wide program going on with things becoming more refined in energy and dimension, and what we would consider from our point of view a raising of dimension, physicality, and consciousness for those who want it. So I hear more too about how there are many people living here on this planet, Earth, who kind of like the struggle. They like the fight. They like the opposition. They like the competition. So they like the self-serving aspect that some of us humans are very, very involved in. So they may just stay here, not evolving into a higher dimension, not ascending. And the others who are open to ascending, who want to live a clearer, higher, better, more loving, more cooperative way, that these people will be the ones who will be doing the ascending process. Now, whether that means actually that we are taken to another planet, which many people are talking about,
Yeah.
where it can be that way, or whether it means that we can just continue to live that way in a higher dimension here on the same planet with the people who are content to live in the third dimension. I don't know. I don't know
Well,
that.
that's almost already
Place.
happening right now, isn't it? Because, the
Yeah, we
world
are now.
that you and I probably live in is probably very different to someone that's experiencing some kind of, lower energy, and suffering and pain. So it's interesting that we already see that polarity in the world right now, don't we?
Yes, and I want to add to that that we see there are people more what we're talking about, what we hope that we are. Um, but uh, in comparison to those who are really dedicated totally to taking as much power and control over the rest of us as possible.
Mm,
We've
yeah.
seen a lot of that lately,
Yeah,
of
particularly
that power
through,
grab.
and what I've found certainly, from my own research is sometimes these things have to come out to recognize them and then transmute them. So I think there's been a tone of that, hasn't there, about what
Yes,
domination is, what control is, and we've seen this through religion for actually thousands of years. The apparatus of religion to even control the way we see the divine. Well, that in at least the last 20 or 30 years substantially has lost its grip on it's certainly the Western world. But then we've seen, government become almost replace that in our own lives. And now we're facing that. And what our relationship to that is.
well, these are really big concerns,
Mm,
major concerns. I think again it goes to the fact that there are some who want the power and the control and the wealth and the might and all the advantages that gives them, advantages over other people, and
yeah.
using other people. In many cases, just shocking numbers of people using other people in what I consider very horrific ways,
Mm, mm,
variety of horrific ways. Um, so that's going on in the world, we know. And
mm.
yet I am coming across more and more people and hearing about more and more people who are just the opposite.
Yeah.
People who are here for service, people who are incarnated here to be helpful to their fellow people.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
People here who are here to inspire and raise the spirituality, raise the consciousness of humanity as much as they can. So we've got this part coming up, being raised, and this part going down, suppressing, controlling. It's right neck and neck going
Yeah.
on in the
And
world.
that's
But
almost like this splitting, isn't it, that we were just touching upon, this splitting of realities between, what one might call the light versus the dark. But it's becoming very pronounced, I think, in the
yes,
time that we are now. We see it very clearly. And perhaps this is the shift that they speak about through your clients. Dolores Cannon was another one that did through
yes,
her work a lot of research and obviously sessions around this splitting of worlds, the old
yeah.
earth and the new earth, as she defined it as. But it's very interesting, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about this, because what I tend to find when I chat with you is so much crossover between what was spoken about through Dolores Cannon's clients and the information that comes through yours. They seem to really
Uh-huh.
very much align in the information.
Well, and I think that that's really good too, because it gives more credence to it. If you hear a new idea, it's very easy to have that cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
sort of clashes into what you always thought, and you don't know quite what to do with that. But if you hear it from this source and that source and maybe another source, you begin to think,
Mm,
maybe there's something to that. I think a great example of that is the near-death experiences that Raymond Moody back in 1977 is when I discovered his work. It was quite new at that time. And that, oh my gosh, people were being declared clinically dead and then having all these experiences of their awareness being somewhere else outside of their body, even way up in the, or out or whatever, in the spirit plane, the after death plane, and having extremely vivid experiences and coming back and then reporting it. You know, they come back into their body, the body is resuscitated, they continue with their life here on earth, remembering, usually they were very impressed with what they had experienced. And then some of them began to talk about that. And then I remember when I first heard that, I was thrilled, and I didn't know whether I should really believe it.
Mm.
But then as more and more stories came out, even from Dr. Raymond Moody and others, there was a Dr. Melvin Morse, who also a year or so later was starting to talk about the stories that people had told him from their near-death experiences. And then more and more, Kenneth Ring got a lot of those cases and many, many, many others. And so the more that you hear this, or I can say this for myself, the more I heard those testimonies, the more I thought, oh, okay, I think that's true. And I remember back in the late 1970s, my parents came from the East Coast where they lived to where I live on the West Coast, came for a visit for about a month. And they were, my father was already in his 80s. My mother was close behind. Uh, and I remember after dinner one night that we just sat at the table and I talked about Raymond Moody's work and some of these other testimonies. And of course, they were getting toward the end of their lives. So they were very, very interested
Yeah.
and asked a lot of questions. And I did the best I could at that time talking about it. But, and then when my father died, my mother said, I am so grateful that you told me about those near death experiences because now I can trust that your dad is
Mm.
very happy and doing well and
Yeah.
is in a wonderful, wonderful situation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I'm sure that that helped her by the time 2 or 3 years later that she passed on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly helps, I was thinking of this only this morning, having a belief in there's just more than this does bring a lot of peace into one's life. I think for those that don't believe anything past the physical, particularly going through the aging process must be a scary thought of potentially non-existence.
Well, my own husband, who was a very wonderful man, he passed on about 8 years ago. And a few months before he passed, I didn't know that it was going to be so soon
Mm.
that he would be passing, but he had had a heart attack
Okay.
and was not doing as well as he had before the heart attack. But still, I thought he'd be with us for longer than it turned out that he did. But anyway, one night, about 3 months before he died, um,
Oh,
And
oh, sorry. I just lost it, just cut out there for a second. So we'll pick it up there again. You were just talking about your husband, and
right.
you were about at the point where you were talking about yeah, he had just had a heart attack.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
And so we were just talking at dinner one night, and I said, um, well, what do you think it will be like after you're not here anymore, after you pass on? And he said, oh, well, I think there'll be nothing. And I said, really? You, you don't think there'll be any kind of awareness at all, even though you may not have a body, but
Mm.
any kind of consciousness? And he said, no, I don't think so. And I said, well, how is that for you to see it that way? And he said, oh, that's fine. He said, I've had a long life and a good life and had you as my wife and four wonderful children and very, very interesting work. And I've seen a lot of the world. And he said, yeah, and that's enough.
And what's
Well,
so great about that example and story, just as you're saying that, is I'm thinking, and what a great way to almost think about it, because as we know, we know that the soul goes on and has multiple experiences, but for that one incarnation, there's certainly nothing wrong with that belief, is there? Because someone's going to live their life to the fullest and appreciate that current incarnation that they're focused on.
yeah, which he did.
Mm.
So there's another piece to this story, however, that about 4 months after he passed on, I was having a very, very vivid dream. And I have a vivid dream only about once every year. I'm not a regular vivid dreamer,
Yeah.
but in this particular vivid dream, I was walking with a crowd of people in a street as if we were going to some big stadium event or performance, maybe. Anyway, it was sort of a positive crowd, all filling up the street, moving along toward whatever our destination was. And suddenly I looked around, and right here was my husband looking, you know, fully physical and alive and everything. And he had on his face an expression. I don't think I can duplicate it, but the kind of expression that says, yeah, I know. I didn't,
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't, know. I didn't think there'd be anything, but there is. Then
Love
we had,
that.
I know, and then we had just a wonderful, wonderful embrace, which I could really feel. And that's why I think it was a real spirit visitation.
Mm, mm.
Happened when I was asleep at night, dreaming. And so that that was wonderful. And even when he had said he didn't think there would be any kind of awareness or existence after physically dying, um, I felt confident that he would find out that there really is, but I didn't need to try to convince him because he was all right with it.
And that's
Yeah.
a great point. It reminds me of what Dolores Cannon said in her life. She said, we're not supposed to try to convert anybody into any way of believing. And if
Oh,
someone believes in this or they don't, it doesn't really matter. I think the apparatus or the purpose of life is experience, is lessons,
Yeah.
is what you talk about is soul expansion and growth. That is the main thing for every individual to experience, not believing in a form of thinking or like a religion, because that's what religion does, right?
Yes. And I think everybody is really on their own journey
Mm,
that they need to be on. And it's different for each one of us. I think we can just have a deeper respect for that. I am trying these days to have respect for those who really want to control the world.
yeah.
That for me is a really, really big challenge.
Mm,
I've not mastered it yet.
yeah.
Sure, I just highly object. Um,
Well,
but there are,
what I always find, sorry to interrupt you there, what I always find with this concept, and I had a situation here the other day in Australia where uh, a reckless driver had caused an accident that harmed many young school children, and the bus flipped over, and a lot of those little school children were um, had to be their legs had to be I'm trying to think of the word amplified, not amplified. I'm trying to think of the word um
amputated.
amputated. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was on the tip of my
right.
tongue. Amputated. And I remember reflecting upon that and just thinking that is just such a horrific situation. Why did that occur? And I felt that they came through and said to me, well, what is this teaching people about responsibility? I mean, yes, it is a very difficult thing to see for society, and it caused a big story here in Australia. But what
Yeah,
is that driver teaching us about responsibility? And
yeah,
I remember someone said that to me years ago. The alcoholic has so much to teach us about abstinence, or the
yeah,
reckless driver has so much to teach us about responsibility. So
yeah. That's true. We certainly reminds us, that we've got to be responsible in those ways.
yeah, so perhaps to go back to your questioning around uh, evil in the world or perceived evil, maybe they have so much to teach us, and that it helps us actually with our own evolutionary journey to work out what we do want, what we don't want. Um, that's
Yeah,
certainly, I think, going along with this time that we're in now of great polarity, I would like to define it as, where really everything is coming up for us to face now. So
yes, yeah,
work out what we really do want.
yes. And I think that people are very wise when they say, don't keep focusing on all that negative stuff. I mean,
Mm,
you're going to know about it, but don't dwell on it.
yes.
Rather than that, keep dwelling on picturing, imagining the way that you would like it to be here on earth.
Mm,
So,
that's powerful, actually. That's and that comes back to this idea that we do create our own reality, good, bad, or indifferent, because we
yeah,
are creative beings. And
yeah,
so we can begin to see what we don't want in the world very pronounced, see what we do want very pronounced, and then we start to gravitate and create according to what we want.
yes. So with all the negative things that we're aware of, that can be an impetus. It can give us a little push
Mm,
to get out there and do the things that we want to see done when possible, and also just to carry that vision of what we want in our minds and meditate on that.
Mm.
Send out those thoughts. I mean, I think that really counts. It may not seem like one person sitting on the sofa meditating can make a big difference out there, but it does contribute. I think it does count, whether whether that person sees the feedback about that or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it comes to sort of probably what will be the final question that I've got today, and that just relates back to what we've been talking about. Um, Dolores Cannon, in her work, spoke a lot about volunteers that are coming in to
Yeah,
help raise the vibration of the planet. Have you been given that same kind of understanding? I know and we've spoken at length about the hybrids, and they sort of have this role. But as far as other souls, do you see them as volunteers coming into the earth at this time in this space, um, to help collectively raise the frequency of the planet?
I definitely do. And more of those people nowadays, for the past couple of years, more people have been coming who are that kind of person. And they want to know, they want to get real clarity about the reason that they came. In other words, these are people who know that they came to serve, and they want the kind of regression which we've been doing to find out their real purpose for being here. So some of them talk about it in terms of, I want to know what my soul really wants me to do. And some say, I want to know what the beings that I came from, in other words, the volunteers, uh, these are volunteers, what they have in mind, what they want to see me help to bring about on planet Earth. So, I mean, I am really thrilled. I'd say two-thirds of the people who have been coming to me these past few years, even this past week,
Wow.
have people who've wanted to know
Yeah.
what they are really here to do. And I think it's wonderful because sometimes in those regressions, they go back, well, they don't go back to anything, they just open up to information from their own soul. This is why you came in. This is the main thing. And very often they're already doing some of that they came in to do. And then that source, whether it's their soul or an extraterrestrial, I'll get to that in a minute, um, will define it even further than what they're doing. Their service could encompass this and this and this, and they're already doing that and that and that. And now, so sometimes the information comes from their own soul, and sometimes it comes from the other beings
Mm.
who were some time ago, another lifetime, or even many lifetimes, or several lifetimes ago, but they're still connected on the soul level. So they sometimes in these regressions get very specific messages from the extraterrestrial beings whom they are very connected to and came from. And those beings, it always amazes me. They seem to know so much more about Earth and us humans than we know about ourselves.
Mm. Do you
And
think
I,
that is because they seeded us? They, in essence, created us as the species that we are today?
Yes, I think that they had a tremendous amount to do with creating us. And not only that, but they have abilities. It would be somewhat akin, I would think, to our ability to do remote viewing. They have abilities to, at a tremendous distance, and often in another whole dimension, to know about what we think and what we feel, as well as what we do. And so they can they can give this inspiration. You see, there are a lot of people whom I've been meeting over these years who, as very little children, there was just a woman just yesterday who said, when I was a little kid, I used to really think about all the stars and the planets, and began to hear as I grew older about the universe, and then other universes, galaxies, universes, all filled with life. Now, most little kids, I think, don't go around thinking about that,
No.
as far as I know. But anyway, that these are little kids that, from a very early age, maybe even infancy, maybe even life in the mother's womb, in one case of a man I worked with. But anyway, from a very early age, that they have visits from those beings and are taken onto the craft with the beings, and their whole perspective, from that point of view, is opened up so wonderfully to other forms of life and space and other crafts to be in, and about the galaxies and so forth. And so they don't necessarily consciously remember all that when they are brought back again, but they have a much more open consciousness. And I think that these people I'm talking about could fit into that category that we consider volunteers,
Yes.
because the beings are very um, positive beings who take them. I mean, they may look like a big reptile, they might look like a big bug, like the praying mantis,
Mm.
might look like these little characters, like the little grays, but still, many of them are really coaching and teaching and expanding the awareness of these little children, so that as they grow up, they will be of more service here to fellow humanity.
Absolutely, yeah. It's profound information. In the contact you've had in all these years, have you ever found any malevolent UFOs or other species that are trying to, I guess, interfere with humanity?
No, and I have had plenty of regressions that have taken people to being on a medical table and being
Mm.
poked and prodded and examined, and various things happening to them. And of course, a person doesn't like that, no matter what age, whether it's a little child or an adult.
The
And
dentist. I don't like the dentist. I don't know about you.
right. Yeah. So, and I wouldn't like it either. However, what I have found so often is that when certain procedures are being done, and if I ask the person, would you like to know why they're doing this? It might be the putting in of an implant, or it might be testing a part of their body, or it might be removing eggs if it's a female, or sperm if it's a male. And then I say, would you like to know why they're doing this? Because the person clearly is not enjoying that.
Mm.
Um, and if they say yes, I say, well, you can ask them and they will answer you. And you just ask out loud or you ask in your own mind. Usually they just ask in their own mind in the regression. And they almost invariably get an answer from those beings that are doing these things. And it really makes sense.
Mm.
And so, in fact, in many cases, they're actually detecting something wrong in the person's body, something that needs medical attention and has not been getting medical attention.
Mm.
So either they will tell the person, um, go home and tell your doctor to check your liver or your pancreas or whatever. They've detected the problem and be sure that you get attention paid, get that remedied, or more likely even that I've run into in these regressions that they will go ahead and heal whatever is wrong. They will heal it themselves right then and there on the table. And they will tell the person, well, your left kidney has a difficulty going on in it, and it's going to be a big problem if you don't tend to it. So we're taking care of that right now. Or your heart, or whatever, is really needing attention, or your blood disorder. That was what happened with one person I did regressions with. So that is really very helpful. It gives the person a different perspective on this unlikable thing that's going on. Of
Mm.
course, the healing is always very pleasant for the person. It usually is done with some form of light emitted to the person, to that area that needs the healing. And there have been many descriptions of the applications of light for the healing that have come.
Yeah, incredible stuff. And I'm glad you said all of that because so many people see extraterrestrials as being um, bad in some way or negative, and we get a lot of scary imagery, particularly through film.
Oh,
I always find with human nature, we tend to fear what we don't understand. And when I think important work like yours is brought to the surface with that universal message, like Dolores Cannon's also, is that really it's just that we don't understand
yeah,
this as much. So we tend to fear it and sort of put an evil face on it. But I think
yeah,
when we can have that understanding, we can see it differently.
right. So I want to get back to your wonderful question
Yeah.
um, about people encountering really negative beings. I have had people encounter beings that they were frightened of
Yeah.
at first, underline at first, because, like, for instance, a person will be taken and see a very, very large reptilian being. Oh, they're really, really frightened because this reptilian might be 8 or 9 feet tall and very muscular and seeming very strong and arrogant, superior, you know. And I've had clients say, boy, this being just really thinks he is the cat's meow. I mean, he is really, really full of himself, you know. But and so that can be kind of frightening. I mean, you don't know how a being like that is going to respond. But then they find out that, oh, he's okay. He just looks big and scary.
Yeah.
It's the same with the mantis beings. The mantis beings can be 8 feet tall or 9 feet tall, or even, like a great big praying mantis insect.
Mm.
And I had one of my earliest clients, whom it turned out I worked with for a period on and off for about 10 years. But in her very first experience as a 4-year-old, outside of her kitchen door one night, there was a group of really strange beings. And the one that she was supposed to go with was a praying a mantis being. But she said, I can't go with him. He's a big bug. As it turned out, I found out from knowing her for all those years, and we did many regressions, turned out that she had many, many encounters. Some people would call them abductions, by this mantis being. And it turned out that he was wonderful,
Mm. Mm.
really kindly, thoughtful, sweet, loving being, even though he looked like a great big bug. So, people having these experiences very often at first, as you were suggesting, just don't know what to expect. I mean, they're so different and often they're so big compared to us. And so we get frightened.
Mm.
And this is one of the wonderful reasons for having these regressions, in my opinion, is because people who might have been afraid of
Mm.
those beings, or afraid that they're having those experiences, or know that they are, but they're afraid of them, will probably find out that, oh, these beings are really okay. They just certainly look a whole lot different, but they're really all right. In fact, I'm really feeling a lot of love and high regard from that being.
Mm.
And it's wonderful when they experience that and realize they don't need to be afraid anymore.
Mm.
A person may always be surprised that a being is there, like waking up in the night, which is so typical.
Mm.
Waking up in the night and being aware that there's light in the room, or little lights flying all around, or a being right there, or a few beings in the room. And that's always going to be a surprise. There might also always be that startle effect, but it doesn't mean that it's bad or that anything bad is going to happen.
Mm.
So that the people I've had the wonderful pleasure of working with over a period of 10 or 11 or 12 years, with a regression each time we meet, um, they become so much more relaxed and fascinated by the whole thing, that they're having these experiences. And I keep learning a lot. It's wonderful. I feel like the luckiest person in the world
Yeah, well,
to
you
get
got a great job, let me tell you.
to be blessed by knowing this. And the beings have such remarkable abilities. We always think of linear time, don't we?
Yes.
Past, present, and future.
Mm.
And they don't operate in a linear way. So that if we do a regression today to an event, going back and having the sense of reliving an event that happened 30 years ago,
Mm.
which happens many, many times in my practice, um, those beings in the regression, those beings talk to the person, and they talk to me doing the regression. That
Wow.
surprised me so much the first time. First time was way back in the 1990s, and I've gotten used to it now, and I love it. So they, because they are not following linear time, past, present, and future. If we go to an experience that really happened for the person 30 years ago, it's just like it's now.
Yeah. Oh,
And
wow.
the beings are present in that experience, and they're present with me doing the regression. So, very often, and I think this is such a blessing, they have a message for me, which is always a helpful message. Or sometimes it's just a message of appreciation.
Mm, mm,
And but they know my name even. I mean, how do they know that? They
yeah.
say, Barbara, Barbara, we have a message for you.
Yeah. It's
We
it's
thank, we thank you for letting this person know what's been happening. She's one of our people working on Earth, and she's been so afraid of us, so afraid to tell anybody that she meets with us. But we are encouraging her to do the work that she came to do there on Earth to help her fellow people.
mm,
You
mm,
know, thank you for bringing this out in her so that she knows this now. She will be able to go forward so much more fully with her work and with confidence and uh, feeling of support. We're supporting her all the time. So,
mm.
I mean, I, oh, I almost weep when things like that happen, you know, and they do happen a lot with these regressions.
Yeah, I bet. Well, incredible. I want to thank you for being so gracious with your time as always. And I do hope that we can do this again. I know you're very busy. You've got it sounds like you've got a lot of sessions on, and but
Yeah,
I'd love to be able to sit down and do this again.
good. Well, I think your questions, your thinking is wonderful.